Today, we are lucky to have someone join us on From the Heart who is quite new to the HeartKids community. Just last year, Tess received her diagnosis of a congenital heart disease, which had gone undetected until she was 23. In this episode, I chat to Tess about her journey from experiencing symptoms of her underlying heart condition to her eventual diagnosis and her surgery.
No one can really prepare you for when a doctor is going to tell you that you're going to need heart surgery or that you have a heart disease or a defect. No one can tell you how you'll feel in that moment. But what I would say is that your thoughts and your fears, they're not facts. And despite my biggest fears going through surgery, nothing that I experienced was ever as bad as I thought it was going to be. The pre-surgery challenge, kind of sitting with that uncertainty, is by far, for me, was the most difficult part of the experience.
Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge that we're recording on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, otherwise known as Warang. We acknowledge the traditional owners and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We pass that respect to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander listeners.
Welcome to From the Heart. How are you feeling? Where are you joining us from, Tess?
Good. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually joining you from the south coast in New South Wales today. I've flown down for my mum's birthday, so spending the weekend with my family.
Beautiful. What do you have planned for mum? Anything special?
Oh, we're just going to do a brekkie and that's about it. Hopefully get down to the beach, but it's freezing cold here today. So
breakfast is the best kind of meal. So lucky mum.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. I have learnt that you may or may not have been a prior listener.
Yes. Guilty.
Yeah. How did you end up finding From the Heart and HeartKids?
Yeah, well, honestly, when I was diagnosed with my condition, I didn't really know anyone else who was going through the same thing. So I went and tried to find outlets where people had spoken about their experience with it and how it went and how they felt, because it was so hard to find anyone that could really relate. And one of the things was your website and your podcast. And I remember I would go for these really big walks, and honestly, I would listen to 3 episodes in a walk. Like, I would just keep listening because you provided so much information on things like even the mental health process or the process of the different tests that you were meant to get as you went along, or people's personal experiences. And I just loved it. Like, I found it so relatable and so helpful to know that, like, I wasn't alone with it.
It makes me really, really happy to hear. Like, I'm so happy about that. And look, well, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. I guess tell me a little bit about you and a little bit about your diagnosis.
Yeah, so me, before the surgery, I had just moved to Brisbane with my best friend, and we'd moved from Canberra. We were really excited to kind of start this new adventure, meet new people, do new things. I was working in hospitality at the time, so a lot of my close friends worked with me, and I was also finishing my uni degree. So I was doing a Bachelor of Psychology, and I was meant to be going into my honours, what would have been this year. And then all of a sudden, I started not feeling so well. So the symptoms of my diagnosis kind of first started happening in about June last year. I remember driving to the airport, and I was in this tunnel, and I was getting really lightheaded and dizzy, and my heart was going really fast. And I was meant to be picking my parents up, but I ended up having to pull over. And I thought at the time I was having a heart attack. I definitely wasn't, but I definitely thought at the time I was. And I called my mom, and I was really distressed. And I was like, this is happening. What do you think it is? And she was like, it's a panic attack. You're just having a panic attack. You're excited to see us. That's what we thought it was, because, yeah.
Oh, no.
Because I hadn't had one before, I kind of didn't know any different. I was like, oh, you're right. Like, that's probably exactly what it is. A couple of weeks later, I went to the GP and I kind of explained my situation. I was looking to get a mental health care plan to go obviously deal with this anxiety that I must have been experiencing. And when you're doing a mental health care plan, it's funny because you get asked a lot of questions on surveys like, do you notice your heart beating really fast? Yes. Do you get palpitations in public? Yes. Tick. Do you have difficulties breathing? Yes. So really, I didn't question it at the beginning. And annoyingly, though, I couldn't get into a psychologist in time. It was like a few months wait. So in those months is when I realized that my symptoms of my heart condition were getting a lot worse, to a point where I just genuinely didn't believe it was anxiety. I would be kind of sitting on the couch and my heart would be racing really fast, and my roommate would be looking at me like, what's going on? Why are you like this? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not even anxious right now. And be really struggling to breathe. So I went back to my GP and I tried to explain this to him. And unfortunately, like, my process of getting diagnosed was maybe a bit more challenging than others because my GP didn't believe me and was very much so trying to promote the idea that it was just anxiety and I shouldn't worry, and wouldn't really give me referrals to go get any other tests. Eventually, I think I went back enough times that he gave me a referral to go get my lungs checked for my breathing. But when that came back completely clear, we just settled on the diagnosis of anxiety and to leave it. From there, the moment where I realized something was really wrong was that I was at work and I was kind of known for going around work, holding my fingers to my throat to feel my pulse because I could always feel it going so fast. I'd walk around asking other people, like, does this feel really quick to you? Because this doesn't feel normal to me and I'm really worried. And everyone then again was like, oh, it's just Tess. She's just worried. It's nothing. But I started feeling really sick at work and my hands went like blue, my heart went really fast, and like 20 minutes later I was being driven to emergency from my roommate. And at emergency was the first time I experienced someone in the healthcare system really listening to what I was saying, which was amazing. And she pretty much said like, okay, you know what, we've done an ECG on you and I can see that something's a little bit off here. I'll write a letter to your GP to give you a referral to go get an ECG, an echo, a 24-hour heart monitor, and a blood test. And so I went and got all of those. And then maybe 4 or 5 days later, I got the call from the GP saying, you know, we need you to come in urgently. And that's when I was told that I had this congenital heart disease, which was a atrial septal defect. So pretty much just a really big hole in my heart that meant the blood wasn't flowing in the way that it should be. And so my right side of my heart was really overworking.
I want to kind of go back to that because I think this is like a big thing that happens so much in our community, and particularly to women, is often you get pigeonholed into the like, it's mental health, it's this, it's not anything else. And the medical gaslighting that happens is really horrible to experience.
Horrible.
Yeah. What was it like for you, I suppose, in those moments of having to keep advocating for yourself and showing up to this doctor that kind of cut you off every chance?
It was really, really difficult. I'm not going to lie. I have a bit of a history of thinking I have something wrong with me and not having something wrong with me. So I definitely felt like my friends and my family around me were kind of like, it's Tess being Tess, you know, it's probably not anything wrong. And no one wanted for it to be this. So I'm glad that they stayed calm on my behalf. But it was really frustrating feeling like I knew something was wrong with my body and I just knew something wasn't right and no one would listen to me. And yeah, it was really difficult. Yeah.
I was going to ask, I suppose, in terms of having that repeated experience with this doctor, I can imagine the diagnosis. It was really validating, but it was also would have been really shocking. Yeah. What was that like?
Exactly. I mean, I felt really conflicted when I got the diagnosis. In part, I was really proud of myself advocating so hard and knowing my own body. And then in the other part, I was almost mad at myself because now I had to face this diagnosis and I had to deal with the consequences of it. And even the way he told me was really tricky. I remember I went into the GP office and I didn't have any family with me. They were all in Canberra. So I brought a couple friends with me. One waited in the car and one came into the doctor with me, and he sat me down. He goes, you have an ASD. Obviously, I have no idea at the time what that is, and then proceeds to follow with that with, if you had found this in a couple of years, you know, I'd be telling you to get your affairs in order. I would be telling you to start writing your will. And I'm sitting here with all this information just absolutely bombarding me. One moment I had anxiety, the next I should be preparing my will. It was just a lot to take in at the moment of being told.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is such an important conversation about trauma-informed care. When we talk about conditions and diagnosis and that stress that comes with this, like, I think sometimes thoughts are meant for the inside of your head and they don't need to come out.
Exactly right. And I think and my parents, I remember, like, I walked out of the GP office. I didn't even bother getting into the car. I just sat down on the pavement. I was inconsolable and I was calling my parents and telling them, trying to repeat what the GP had said. And they even at the time were like, that is ridiculous. That is so unprofessional the way you were told. And they had so many questions. I had so many questions that just simply had not been answered. So there was just so much ambiguity around the situation that I didn't know where to start.
Yeah. I think in terms of, I suppose, the process beyond that and specialists, I think knowing it's really hard to keep going to doctors who have made you feel unsafe like that. Like, I suppose beyond this particular doctor, have you been able to have a team beyond him that has made you feel safe and made you feel listened to and validated?
Absolutely. From that, I actually didn't end up seeing this GP again.
Yes, good.
Yeah. I was really lucky in the way that my mum had some siblings up here who were quite well connected with an incredible cardiologist. She managed to get me in, I think, 2 weeks later, and her care plus the care of another one who specifically focused to congenital heart disease, as well as a cardiothoracic surgeon who just all worked together, was the most amazing healthcare I'd ever received. I was so surprised that I hadn't even got an earlier second opinion when I met them, because they seemed to pick up on it so quickly.
Yeah, there you go. I think I'm really interested in terms of, we talk a lot about, obviously in this space, congenital heart diseases and defects and of the things of that nature. What was it like for you to know that this is a congenital condition, this has been here since I was little, and only now it's kind of being picked up? Was that really hard to grapple with?
Oh, really hard to grapple with. And I think that I found it, I don't know, I was just kind of like, what if I had never noticed? I think that was something that played in my head a lot. What if I never had this experience? What if I had maybe got into that psychology appointment 2 months earlier? Would I have just kept believing it was anxiety and never really followed it any further? So knowing that I had dealt with this my whole life and knowing that it would have been affecting me my whole life was something I really had to sit with.
Yeah. So after your diagnosis, what was the process like up to surgery? What did that path kind of look like?
Up to surgery, I remember having to get a lot of tests. I was going to get MRIs, contrast scans, blood tests, lung function tests. Can't remember what it's called, but they put the camera down your throat, and that was an overnight process at hospital. And I was a kid who grew up completely terrified of needles, terrified of anything. I would bring my sister to go get my COVID vaccination with me. I couldn't be alone. And going through all of this, all of a sudden alone, was a really tricky process up to surgery, and something that I just had to kind of face head on.
I think I talk a lot about, it's a horrible experience to like think your life is one thing and then have it kind of completely change. And I'm really, I guess, interested in how you have come to be resilient in it. But also I find that we always kind of get to that point where we're like, well, it is what it is and I just have to do it.
Yeah.
Tell me about your surgery. Tell me about what procedure you had and what that experience was like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a couple of choices of what surgery to get. My health team kind of laid out the options for me and let me decide. In the end, I decided on choosing open heart surgery, but going through a minimally invasive way. So kind of like through the side. That was a tricky decision because it meant much more pain at the beginning, but you would recover faster. And I also was really worried at the time about having the scar down the front, which is obviously just a cosmetic concern and it really doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. What was it like to like prep for it? How were you feeling? And then how did you feel after?
Yeah. So to prep for it, I actually remember asking my surgeon, is there anything I should be doing, not doing? And he really just told me to try and enjoy your life up until now. Everything's going to be okay. Like just keep everything as normal. But I really found it difficult to accept that. So I remember being like, I have to eat really healthy and I won't go out and do anything. I'm just going to exercise a lot before. And then when it got to the surgery date, I was really nervous. And to prepare for it, they give you some medication to relax, which actually before surgery, you might be really nervous that, you're going to be an anxious wreck. But once you are given these, you are a lot calmer and you're able to actually get a good night's sleep before, which I really appreciated. Going into the surgery room, my surgery was at 5 a.m. in the morning. Oh. My parents came really early to give me a hug goodbye and tell me that they were going to see me on the other side. And then that's all I really remember until I woke up about 6 hours later. The surgery went for a couple hours extra than I thought because they ended up finding another hole in my heart. So they just kind of patched that up as well. And when I woke up, I remember my biggest fear was that I was going to have a big tube down my throat and I wasn't going to be able to speak and I was going to be in a lot of pain. But the first thought I had when I woke up was like, oh my goodness, I'm alive and it's over. Like it's done. The surgery is done. I don't have to go through this again. And it was such a relief.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really stressful. The waking up after is the kind of like before you go in, you think about the waking up after and then you wake up after and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm here, I'm okay. Did you get much hospital food while you were there?
I couldn't eat. I actually found out I was allergic to morphine at the time.
Oh
so
my
just
God.
everything, unfortunately, limited pain relief and just a lot of being sick, which wasn't great.
You poor thing. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, so tell me, minimally invasive is really cool. Tell me a little bit about like the recovery process in that particular kind of surgery and what it was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. The recovery process for me, I found that I was really determined to get better as fast as I could, which was a blessing and a curse, because a blessing meant that I was dedicated to kind of put my all into getting better, but also a curse in that I was really disappointed when results weren't coming as fast as I thought they could. And also it meant I maybe pushed my body a little bit too much. I did find the first 7 days probably the most difficult of the entire recovery process, because you are still connected to so many tubes and you're in a lot of pain. Even though they do give you a lot of pain relief, it was just unfortunate that the morphine wasn't the right fit for me. And I remember on day 3 thinking, this is never going to be over. I'm going to be in this pain forever. And, you know, you're relearning to breathe on your own, and you're walking 20 meters and you're getting a clap because everyone's so impressed that you can finally walk again. And I just couldn't imagine a situation where I was going to be back to my normal fit self that I was before surgery. But then at something like day 5 or 6, I was breathing all by myself again. And I was walking laps around the hospital and I was getting the wires pulled out. And by day 10, I was leaving the hospital fully clothed in my normal casual gear and then going to get gelato when I got home. So it was crazy in those kind of that 7 to 10 day period, how quickly my body could recover from this. I would say, though, that was kind of the fastest recovery period. And then after that, those 5 to 6 weeks can be a little bit difficult and a bit slower. I found that the progress wasn't as dramatic and I still felt tired a lot of the time. I couldn't lift things, I couldn't drive. And that was really difficult for me because I felt like I had no autonomy and no strength, and I just felt a bit hopeless.
Yeah. I think the thing that they kind of don't tell you about a lot of the medical stuff is that you're not in control of it and you try really hard to be in control. And I've done it so many times where I've pushed myself and then I've been like, I need to rest and I need to rest and not feel guilty about resting. I just need to go full rot mode, do nothing. Like, you know, it's such a totally normal coping mechanism. Yeah, I guess for you, how did you move from seeing that really quick recovery and then moving into recovery that did take a lot longer? How did you accept that we are still moving forward, but it is just at a different pace right now?
I did find it really difficult, especially because I had flown down to Canberra to be with my parents throughout that recovery process. So I was away from a lot of the life I had just made for myself. I was back at my old home, living under my parents' roof, not working, not driving, and I just felt really let down by myself. And I found myself a lot of the time completely disregarding the fact that I had just undergone open heart surgery and comparing myself to all my best friends around me who, you know, were traveling overseas or in med school or moving into their new apartment with their lovely boyfriend. And I just remember feeling like, what's going on for me? And I think I kind of overcame that by realizing that this was going to take time and lowering my expectations of what my life should be at this very moment, and just focusing on the fact that I have been through something that so many other people my age that I knew hadn't. And that in itself was a huge achievement that I was recovering from that.
I think this is such a big thing. How old are you?
24.
I'm 26. Like, this is such a thing that, like, I notice with myself, but like friends of mine that have chronic conditions, that we get so much into the rat race of like the job and the thing, and that it's really difficult to compare. You have to do so much work on the like, well, I need to kind of be free of that expectation. Like,
exactly. Like, we all have our own trajectories and you should live by your values and what's going on in your own life rather than this objective, like what age you should be achieving what things.
Exactly. Quite frankly, if I had a boyfriend, I would probably dump him. So like, I don't need that anyway. Like,
no.
That's the thing. Like, I think it's so hard, especially like being on Instagram and TikTok and seeing that social life that is, because these are experiences, and I don't necessarily know how you've moved and told people about yours. But for me, I never really share that, and I don't really share these things. So when I'm not active on social media about that and I'm seeing my friends being in Europe, of course you're going to internalize that sort of stuff.
Exactly. That's exactly how I felt as well. And it was just so hard not to compare, or even I found myself comparing my problems with other people's problems. Like, for example, someone would be complaining about an assignment and I would be thinking to myself, I wish I could be complaining about an assignment right now. It was such an unhealthy pattern I got myself into that I really had to work to get out of.
I think this is like, the mental health conversation around conditions like this is so important because, when you come into these like really life-changing moments, your emotional bandwidth for other people. Like if anybody talks to me about their relationship problems when I'm going through something, I can't show up for you, and that's okay. In terms of the one thing that I think has been really important for me is to look at the support network that I have and the people that I know will show up. And when I deliver news and things like that, what's it been like for you? You know, I know that mum and dad have been around and you had friends that took you to your appointments. What has your support system been like through this journey?
Honestly, I couldn't be more grateful for everyone that had been there for me. I had my family obviously back in Canberra and my sister who would answer endless FaceTimes from me when I would be upset and just be there to listen. And on top of that, I mean, I had the best roommate in the entire world and a lot of friends I'd made in Brisbane and special people who maybe hadn't known me that long, but showed up in ways that I can't even explain. And that felt truly, truly incredible. And I was so grateful for them. And then, of course, on top of that, I was lucky enough to have booked myself a psychology appointment months ago. So that felt like fate that I had her there.
So we talked a little bit about like coping with your mental health and emotional health through surgery and recovery. I guess for you now, having that psychology appointment, and now we're on the other side, we're in the post-vention era of open heart surgery. How's it been like, I suppose, readapting to life and doing that with like a healthcare professional who is helping you with your mindset?
I wouldn't be where I am without her. She has taught me so much about how to kind of reevaluate where my life is and set realistic goals. And we worked a lot together on kind of what I mentioned before, rather than comparing my life to a set of objective trajectories where it's like finish a degree at a certain age, buy a house, have a partner. We focused far more on my values, and that completely changed my outlook on things. I realized that my values were things like trying to find a career that wasn't hospitality, that maybe linked a little bit more to my degree, and volunteering and staying close with my friends and family and focusing on my physical health. And once we changed my mindset to that, it just made all the difference to how I felt about how much my life had changed post-surgery. And I mean, she really helped me. We found me a new job that moved from hospitality to working in a psychology clinic, began my lifeline volunteering. We set myself goals for physical exercise. And all of a sudden, I didn't feel so behind on life anymore. And I kind of felt comfortable sitting where I was.
Yeah, I did the same thing with my psych, like shifting from the trajectory of what life should, air bracket, look like to like a values-driven life. And I think the people like us who have been through those traumatic experiences, coming back to your values at a base level where it's like, well, you know, life can change at any moment. Things happen. So when I look at life and the person that I am, what's important to me and how do I live that life? You know, you mentioned like volunteering and giving to people. I guess what's it been like for you to be able to have those experiences and kind of sit in a place of, you know, that was really traumatic, but I'm settling back into my life and who I am and I'm giving back?
I'm so grateful to have been able to find some meaning from this experience and kind of see this as a silver lining throughout it all, because I know that my life wouldn't have slowed down enough previously to ever have been able to grasp at these opportunities. And now that I can, and I can give back and I can take time into really focusing on my passions, I feel really grateful. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but it is really important to try and go through like a cognitive reappraisal of your situation and see where the benefits lie. Because I think in any situation you can grow and you become a stronger and more resilient and better person than I was pre-surgery. So yeah, I am grateful.
I think it sucks, doesn't it? When you're kind of like, oh, this was like a horrible thing, but also like, yay, like,
yeah, like
you get the kind of why me, and then you do, well, it is what it is, so I just have to do it.
Exactly.
I think looking at who you are now and still acknowledging that even though you're a different person now, you're still the girl who was living like that before. You're still that person. You've just changed a little bit. What are the things that you've learned about yourself that I suppose you might not have seen before?
I have definitely learned that I am far more resilient than I have ever thought. I didn't think that if you had told me 5 years ago, this is what is going to happen in your life in the future, I don't think I would have been able to handle it. And even though in the moment when I was told, I also didn't think I could handle it, I look back on everything I've been through and I just am amazed. I'm like, wow, you really did that and you did it so bravely, especially being alone for the beginning of the process and even through the recovery and bouncing back from everything else that had to get put on pause after surgery, like uni and work and starting to create savings again, things like that. I'm so proud now when I look 6 months later that I've managed to kind of get back on my feet and not let it impact my life in a negative way. I've kind of taken that strain and seen what I can build from that.
Yeah. And I think it's like a beautiful thing to look at these experiences and like acknowledge that it's hard and there's grief and things like that. But at the end of the day, know that you did it.
Exactly
right. What else is there? Like, we're here. Like,
yeah, exactly. And it's hard when you feel like you're not really given much of a choice. It's either you do it or this condition is going to shorten your life expectancy. And people are like, you're so brave. And sometimes I felt like saying, well, I'm not that brave because I have to do it. But when you take a step back and you have a look, you're like, no, that was really brave.
Yeah. It's like, why can't we just be nice to ourselves?
Yeah.
Like, that was brave. Hell yeah. Like, we did that. It's so difficult. Look, post-surgery, I guess now looking at your life, completely changed. What does the life look like with your condition now? Is everything okay? What's like health management look like?
I am fully repaired. They have told me that I have a very normal life expectancy and that this should never be a problem for me again. I've obviously finally got back into uni and back into work, and that's felt really great. But I would say that once you've been diagnosed with something like this and you have gone through the process, I still get worried about it all the time. I'll feel a little heart palpitation or a bit dizzy and immediately I think something's wrong. I had trips back to the doctors because I felt like, no, this isn't fixed. Something's still wrong. And it's at that point again where they say you might have anxiety about this. And a part of me wants to believe them because it's very possible that I am still incredibly anxious about what happened. But it is still a little bit difficult kind of managing how I feel and how much I should believe in myself first. Maybe sometimes it is just the thoughts about what I've been through. But, I keep up with regular appointments with my cardiologist and everything's been good so far. So just keeping my fingers crossed that it stays like that.
I feel like that's such a, given the situation that you went through with your GP, no wonder you're doubting yourself and no wonder you're nervous about these sort of things because that stuff stays with you when you're like,
yeah,
maybe it is me. I'm a hypochondriac through and through. I get a headache and I think it's the worst thing in the world. That's just a repercussion of the experiences that we've had. So you know your body best. And I think going to a doctor a few more times a year is never a bad thing.
Agreed. Fully agree. That's the advice I would tell anyone.
That's it. From one hypochondriac to another, love the doctors. I guess moving into the future, what are some things that you're looking forward to? If we think about, we're throwing out the blueprint society wants, but a values-based life, what are the things that you really want to achieve and what are you looking forward to?
I'm really excited. I have been trying to finish my honours for the last 2 years now, and it's just been delayed and delayed. And so next year, it's just tick. It's going to happen. So I'm so excited to finally get that out of the way and kind of get a bit more stuck into my career. I really want to go traveling, save some money. I mean, I've had time this year to kind of study less, work more, which has been good. That's a plus side of it. And also just to kind of get more physically fit, just to keep working on my health. That's something that now feels like such an achievable goal and also something that's really in line with my values. So I'm kind of excited to see where I can go with that in the next few years.
Yeah, 100%. And look, you've had such an insane journey and such as all at once. It's so compounded for you, you poor thing. It was one thing to another. I guess being on the other side of that, I'm so happy for you. I'm thrilled for you. What is your advice to somebody who might come across a similar situation at your age? Looking back on your experience, what were the things that really you valued in it?
No one can really prepare you for when a doctor is going to tell you that you're going to need heart surgery or that you have a heart disease or a defect. No one can tell you how you'll feel in that moment. But what I would say is that your thoughts and your fears, they're not facts. And despite my biggest fears going through surgery, nothing that I experienced was ever as bad as I thought it was going to be. The pre-surgery challenge, kind of sitting with that uncertainty, is by far, for me, was the most difficult part of the experience. But once it was over, you are such a stronger and more resilient person, and those skills will carry out through the rest of your life with you. I wouldn't be afraid to reach out for help. I know that my support networks were the best thing that had happened to me, and definitely going to a psychologist and getting her advice and learning how to change my mindset made all the difference to how I recovered physically and mentally. And that remembering, even if this kind of maybe put a halt to things in your life one way or another, that opportunities will continue to open themselves to you if you look for them and just live by your values.
Perfect. Oh, look, thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Girl, loved it. Absolutely loved it. Is there anything you'd like to say or you would like to add?
That's everything.
Beautiful. All right, perfect. We're going to wrap that up right here. Thank you.
Sometimes this podcast deals with some heavy things. If this brings up anything for you or somebody that you love, it's important to reach out for help. The HeartKids helpline provides support and guidance for anyone impacted by congenital or childhood heart disease. You can call the helpline on 1800 432 785. To access more information about childhood heart disease as well as support from HeartKids, visit the website at heartkids.org.au. The information on this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice from your doctor or healthcare team. Always talk to your doctor about matters that affect your or your family's health.